Before we begin, a short note. We have done our very best to gather accurate information from open source reporting, court documents, and international media. If you find anything in this episode you disagree with, or if you have additional details, please contact us. We genuinely want to get these stories right. This case has no political or geopolitical agenda. It is shared for purely informative and educational purposes. Prague, July 10, 1973. At roughly 1:45 in the afternoon on a warm summer day, a heavy Praga RN truck climbed a curb near Strossmayerovo Square. It did not stop, it did not swerve. For more than 20 meters, it drove straight along a tram platform packed with elderly commuters. And when it finally came to rest, 8 people were dead or dying in the street. Behind the wheel sat a 22-year-old woman, calm, unhurt, unmoved. When police pulled her from the cab, she told them she had done it on purpose. She said she had wanted to kill as many people as possible. She said this was revenge on her parents, on her neighbors, on society itself. This is the story of Olga Hepnarová. To understand what happened that afternoon, you first have to understand the country in which it happened. In the summer of 1973, Czechoslovakia was 5 years into what the ruling Communist Party called Normalisation, the long, gray period that followed the Soviet-led invasion of 1968 and the crushing of the Prague Spring. Dissent had been purged. Censorship had returned. Newspapers printed what they were told to print, and domestic life was expected to appear calm, orderly, and collectively content. Violent crime, when it did happen, was rarely discussed in detail. It did not fit the image of a stable, socialist society. So, when a truck drove onto a tram platform in broad daylight and killed 8 people, the state-run press had a problem. Olga Hepnarová was born in Prague on June 30th, 1951, to a bank clerk father and a dentist mother. On paper, her childhood was middle class and stable. In reality, it was not. By the time she was 13, she had attempted suicide by overdose and spent roughly a year in psychiatric care, first at a Prague clinic and then at the Children's Psychiatric Hospital in Opavany, where she would later claim she was beaten and humiliated by staff. She was, by every account, profoundly isolated. She did not fit in with her peers. She could not hold relationships. After school, she trained as a bookbinder, then retrained as a professional driver. She moved into a workers' hostel, bought a small Trabant car she adored, and she began quietly to plan. In August of 1970, at the age of 19, Olga traveled to her father's inherited farmhouse in the village of Zábrodí and set fire to the door. Her sister and 2 elderly tenants were sleeping inside. They managed to put the flames out before the building was destroyed. No one suspected her. The crime stayed unsolved for years. She would only confess to it later, after the truck attack, during psychiatric examination. But the arson told investigators something important. What she did in 1973 was not a sudden snap. The impulse to destroy, to strike back at family, at society, at anyone she felt had wounded her, had been building for years, long before she ever climbed into the cab of a Praga truck. By the early 70s, Olga had cut off nearly all contact with her family. She described herself, in her own words, as a sexual cripple. She felt mocked. She felt watched. She felt that every institution in her life, her family, her schools, her hospitals, her workplaces, had failed her. and she began to consider how she might answer. At first, she thought about derailing a train, then about planting a bomb in a crowded room, then about buying an automatic rifle and shooting people on Wenceslas Square. She even briefly joined a state-run shooting club to learn how to fire a weapon. In the end, she settled on the method that was easiest to obtain and hardest to stop. She worked as a truck driver. She had access to trucks. On July 9, 1973, the day before the attack, Olga did two things. First, she mailed near-identical letters to two Prague newspapers, Svobodné slovo and Mladý, svět, announcing what she was about to do. In those letters, she wrote, "I am a loner, a destroyed woman. I have a choice, to kill myself or to kill others. I choose to pay back my haters." She signed it. "I, Olga Hepnarová, sentence you to death by being run over." Then she drove her beloved Trabant, the one possession she truly cared about, to a steep slope outside the city and pushed it off the edge. She was cutting every tie. She was done. The following morning, July 10th, she reported to work. She passed a required test drive to prove she could handle the specific Praga RN she wanted. She rented the truck, registration AD 1995, and packed spare clothes and cigarettes in the cab because she expected to be arrested. She drove into the Prague 7 district and located a tram platform on the street then called Obranců míru, today Milady Horakové, in front of house number 9. At about 1:30 in the afternoon, she made her first pass. A tram was pulling out. Too few people remained on the island. She decided to circle around. Roughly 15 minutes later, she came back. 25 to 30 elderly passengers were now waiting on the platform. She accelerated down the slope. She yanked the wheel to the right, and she drove the truck onto the pavement. The Praga RN traveled approximately 20 meters along the combined sidewalk and tram island at speed, striking person after person. 3 people died instantly. 5 more would die over the following hours and days. 12 more were injured, 6 of them seriously. Every one of the dead was elderly, between 60 and 79 years old. When the truck finally came to a stop, it did so without any attempt to brake. Bystanders at first believed the driver must have suffered a medical emergency. They rushed to help, and they found a young woman sitting calmly in the cab. She did not run. She did not resist. When the public security officers arrived, she told them she had done it on purpose. She told them she wished she had killed more. The case was handed to the Traffic Accident Unit of Prague's public security, working alongside criminal investigators and forensic experts from both military and civilian institutes. They inspected the truck. The brakes were fine, the steering was fine. The trajectory showed deliberate, controlled steering, not a loss of control. The state newspaper Rudé Právo reported the event 2 days later under a small headline: "Tragic Consequences of a Traffic Accident." It described a truck that had left the road, quote, "for as yet unexplained reasons." That framing would not hold. Her letters, delayed by the postal service, arrived at the newspaper offices that same day, openly declaring the attack as revenge, openly confessing to premeditation. From that moment, the state could no longer treat the killings as an accident. The state had to put Olga Hepnarová on trial. For months, teams of psychiatrists, psychologists, and sexologists examined her. They read her old records from Opajany. They conducted new interviews. Her own defense lawyer, the Prague attorney Otakar Topič, argued that she was suffering from paranoid schizophrenia and should be hospitalized, not executed. Some modern commentators have since argued she may have been on the autism spectrum, or severely psychotic. But the official expert panel reached a different conclusion. She had a severe personality disorder, they said. She had sexual and social deviations, but she was legally sane. She had understood what she was doing. She had planned it. She had announced it. She'd carried it out. In the language of Czechoslovak criminal law, she was fully responsible and fully eligible for the ultimate penalty. The main trial opened at the City Court in Prague on April 2, 1974. Access was tightly controlled. Roughly 80 seats were reserved for what the regime called organized public, Ministry of Justice officials, prosecutors, public security personnel, lay judges. Photography was forbidden. For 3 days, the court heard from forensic doctors, psychiatrists, traffic experts, and witnesses from her neighborhood and her workplace. Olga herself, seated in the courtroom, expressed no remorse. She called her act justified. She asked the court, on the record, to impose the death penalty. On April 6, 1974, at 11:15 in the morning, the court delivered its verdict. Guilty. 8 counts of murder under paragraph 219 of the Criminal Code. Sentence: death by hanging. She accepted the verdict. She announced she would not appeal. Her mother appealed on her behalf. It did not change the outcome. There is a strange, almost forgotten twist in the legal history of this case. In September of 1974, the Federal Supreme Court of Czechoslovakia reviewed the verdict, as the law required for any death sentence, and it ruled that the lower courts had been technically wrong. Olga Hepnarová had not committed murder in the narrow legal sense. She had committed aggravated public endangerment under paragraph 179, a statute normally used for industrial disasters and catastrophic accidents. She had endangered, the court wrote, a larger, not individually defined group. But the distinction did not save her. Public endangerment carried the same maximum sentence as murder. The death penalty stood. And so she became, by legal classification, less a murderer and more a one-woman disaster. In the months that followed, her lawyer and her mother petitioned the president for clemency. President Ludvík Svoboda was ill. His authority passed to the federal prime minister, Lubomír Štrougl. On March 3, 1975, Štrougl rejected the petition. 9 days later, before dawn on March 12, 1975, Olga Hepnarová was hanged in the basement execution suite of Pankrác Prison. She was 23 years old. She became the last woman ever executed in Czechoslovakia. Popular accounts, many of them repeated as fact, describe her fighting the hangman on the gallows, biting his finger, soiling herself, having to be dragged to the rope. Researchers who have examined the actual execution protocols say none of this is documented. Those lurid details appear to come from a fictional monologue written decades later by the novelist Bohumil Hrabal. There is one detail that still haunts people who followed the case. Her defense lawyer, Otakar Topič, had argued against her execution. He had fought for her to be treated as mentally ill. He had lost. 2 years after the hanging, in 1977, he was found dead. He had taken his own life. Colleagues, quoted in Czech tabloids years later, suggested he had never recovered from her case, that he blamed himself for failing to save her. Some writers in Czech media have called him her 9th victim. It is a haunting phrase. It is also, historians caution, speculative. His death is documented, his reasons are not. But the fact remains, the woman who killed 8 strangers in broad daylight may have broken the one man who tried, in the end, to save hers. The case is legally closed. There is no open investigation, no alternative suspects, no remaining doubt about what happened or who did it. What remains is debate about whether the Czechoslovak state correctly understood the young woman it put to death, about whether modern psychiatry would have recognized signs that were missed, about whether the death penalty served justice or simply ended a conversation no one wanted to have. Today, the tram stop where she attacked stands on Mladý Horákové Street, modernized, with raised platforms and shelters. Tens of thousands of Praguers pass through it every week. Most of them do not know what happened there. In 2016, a black and white feature film titled I, Olga Hepnarová brought her story to international audiences for the first time. Olga Hepnarová once wrote that she was destroyed long before she destroyed anyone else. She said she had only 2 choices, kill herself or kill others, and that she had chosen the harder option on purpose because she wanted to be remembered. 50 years later, she still is. What do you think? Should she have ended up in a psychiatric hospital or on the gallows? Let us know in the comments. And if you want more cases like this video and subscribe.